Hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but we just love doing stuff in video games. With video game mechanics, in layman's terms, it's kind of the catch-all term for things you do in games, essentially how you do them, the things developers implement that keep you busy in the game and keep you having fun. We want to talk about 10 really cool game mechanics that we don't see in newer games, just stuff from older games. Maybe these mechanics evolved, changed, or they're just completely gone. We got 10 things to talk about, so let's get started off with number 10. We're gonna start off with a banger with Havoc and Euphoria physics, because there's nothing better than a good old-fashioned ragdoll in a game. When physics engines were still a new idea in games, devs did just about everything possible to show it off. I mean, sure, the original Max Payne is a classic, it's definitely one of my favorites, but Max Payne 2, man, that's the one with the ragdolls, and it's incredible. The parts where the game would just go into slow motion and you watch a guy just perforated with bullets tumble out of a window. It's just so good. Compared to the kinds of physics we see now, it's not that realistic, but it is really damn satisfying. Now, Rockstar took these effects to the next level with their Euphoria engine, which made for some surprisingly realistic stuff in their games. Now, bad guys don't just like flop around randomly, they would crumple up in realistic ways when they fell, or stumble around based on locational damage and the force of the projectile. It's a much more sophisticated system that, to this day, still feels like a lot flashier than the stuff we normally see in games. Characters have a lot of weight to them. Now, it just feels like taking out enemies in a lot of games just isn't that spectacular. It almost feels downplayed and not nearly as flashy, even if the games now might be technically more realistic. Just go to any random set of stairs in GTA 4 and start pushing people around. It's one of the most fun things you can do in the game. Just watching people like tumble and fall all over the place is so satisfying because of the physics engine. GTA 5 still has it, and it's still impressive, but they toned down the effects by a lot, so it's not really as noticeable. It's a little bit more going for realism. Modern games just don't go crazy with physics effects like they used to, and it's a shame because messing around with this stuff makes some of those old games so much fun. Next, over at number 9, speaking of physics, no other racing game has really managed to make it as fun as the Burnout series. Takedowns, where you crash an opponent's car, was always a thing in the series, but the real brilliance came in Burnout 3 when they added Aftertouch. Now, with the press of a button, a crashed car can suddenly become a deadly projectile. Like, in slow motion, you can guide your car's momentum around in front of other drivers and create a glorious chain reaction of destruction. You're essentially directing your wreck into more car wrecks. It's great for getting payback or just to give yourself an advantage, and it's just fun as hell in general. Like, it gamifies something that would normally just be completely non-interactive and gives you the chance to turn a loss into a small victory, or just compound your victory depending on the game mode. Aftertouch really turns the crash mode from an amusing afterthought to one of the all-time great racing game extra modes. It's almost more fun than the actual game, I'll say it. So many racing games these days try to avoid crazy crashes and excessive car damage because of stipulations from car manufacturers and stuff like that, technical limitations. It sucks. I mean, what do these car makers think? They don't want to see their cars crashed up because people aren't going to buy them? It's a video game. Nobody cares. It's still crazy that we've never gotten another Burnout game because these games were so good. The fact that Aftertouch hasn't appeared really in any racing games since Burnout Revenge is criminal. Next, over at number 8, the artificial intelligence or AI debate is never ending, but if there's one thing I think we can all agree on, it's that video game AI feels like it's kind of in a slump right now. That's not true of every genre necessarily, but in some first-person shooter games, it definitely feels like enemy AI isn't a priority anymore. Back in the day, we had games like Half-Life 1 and Fear, where making the enemies feel like they're alive was one of the central concerns of the game. In Fear in particular, it was a standout. Enemies would like move around intelligently to flank you. They'd throw grenades, call out your location in ways that really made you feel like you were taking on an enemy force. It's stuff like this that you just don't see as much these days, and it's not because AI has gotten worse exactly. It just seems like for some game makers, making enemies appear smart, it's not the priority. Even Half-Life 2 didn't bother putting in the work as much as the first game. The Combine kind of felt a lot dumber than the Marines of the first game. Even if on a technical level, that's not exactly true. But the trick to making good game AI seems to be like the player has to notice it. Even if, at the end of the day, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors and tricks, if the player doesn't notice that the enemies are just acting randomly, then your AI is a success. Games like Fear, again, used a lot of clever tricks to make you think the enemy is smart. They're programmed to spread out around the environment so it feels like they're trying to surround you, with behaviors to make them more aggressive or stay back. When one enemy acts, another one does a call out to give the illusion that they're working together, when really it's just each soldier acting alone, and the barks just get transferred over to another guy. Simple stuff, but it makes the game so much more fun to engage with, and it's something you rarely see done in modern games. The fire of reactive enemy AI is still burning in some games though, like Sulaco, which very much feels like an indie Fear and is one of the best shooters of 2024. So the dream of good enemy AI isn't dead, it's just technology has evolved, it's been deprioritized, and some game enemies now are technically way more smarter, there's way more technology involved, but it still just doesn't feel like it used to. Next, over at number 7, hey, remember when action games had gigantic move lists that you used maybe like 10% of, but it was cool anyway? We miss that. Now everything is often just so optimized and carefully balanced, and it feels like everything you do needs to serve a specific gameplay function or it's not in the game. Compare like Marvel's Spider-Man 2 to the movie game Spider-Man 2. In the old game, you could do all kinds of goofy stuff, like web bad guys to lamp poles or power up your attacks with web fists, while the new game doesn't really have any secondary little abilities like that. Everything is tightly designed to serve a very specific function. The original Dead Rising was full of goofy moves that just didn't need to be there, but they were fun. You could do like suplexes or rip zombies' guts out with a super punch. The game had this huge move list that most people probably never even really bothered with because there's no point and the game is very stressful. Any weapon you found would typically be more effective, so all this stuff was mostly just for fun. Hulk Ultimate Destruction, Prototype, all these games had totally unnecessary moves that just made the game more interesting. And we wish more modern games would allow themselves to get silly like this, you know? I know some people might think that like unlocking abilities like this is a beginner's trap or it's like bloating the game or something, but to us, it just makes these types of games more interesting and varied and a little weird. It allows us more opportunities to put ourselves into the game and just do whatever we want in it. So like, do you need to be able to use a car as a sled in the Hulk games? No, but the game wouldn't be nearly as good without a bunch of weird abilities like that. Now at number 6, remember when every multiplayer game had server browsers, like even console games? Yeah, it wasn't like the most convenient way to play a game. It is nice that now you can just turn on a game and immediately jump into a match if you want, but the loss of player server browsers and custom servers in general in the online space feels like a net negative to us. I know some games, they still have them, they're still around, they're not extinct, but it's just not as common now. There are a lot of benefits to having proper player player-run servers. These things often had server admins who would keep the peace and had the power to kick bad actors. Servers led to players developing friendships and close bonds, and through that, there was like a social contract to follow. Players were dealing with other players rather than like nameless, faceless server administrators, so there was a lot more of a concerted effort of a game's community to police itself. It wasn't a perfect system, it was pretty messy sometimes, but it's a system that we can't help but miss. I mean, people were more inclined to play these games for fun when there was no skill-based matchmaking. There was no persistent stats, no kill-death ratio to worry about, or a battle pass to grind through. You were just going online to play multiplayer for the fun of it. Now, I know we're getting a little off track from the server browser thing, but stick with me. Let's just say this is a catch-all for old-school multiplayer shooters. They used to be so much simpler than they are now. There have been a lot of improvements. I mean, I can't deny that it's satisfying when you level up and unlock stuff in a multiplayer game, but there's something to be said for the simple pleasures of old school shooters. Next, over at number 5, for a while, it felt like everything was giving you like a party that you could command. And I'm not talking about like RPG stuff here. I mean like everything. There's Mass Effect, obviously, but also games like Ghost Recon, Advanced Warfighter, or GRAW for my homies, Rainbow Six Vegas, Brothers in Arms, The Bureau even. The list goes on. Hell, even the original Gears of War like kind of let you give squad commands. Certain games were more tactical than others, but like in general, the ability to command your squad offered a level of tactical depth in these games that like you don't see that much outside of games that are just straight up tactics games. During the last generation, all these squad controls kind of got phased out. Mass Effect Andromeda cut them, Ghost Recon Breakpoint cut them kinda, before putting them back in again. Gears pared theirs down, and for whatever reason, tactical third-person combat was kind of on the way out, or just painfully simplified. It's a mechanic that we don't think needs to be in every game, but it's something that we wish we got more of in big budget games. The Mass Effect games, especially 2 and 3, were so much fun, and being able to directly command your allies added a lot to the fights in those games. It really made you think tactically, and the different abilities made each of your party members feel special and stand out. It's a mechanic that adds depth to these single player games. Even when it's not actually all that necessary or kind of half-assed, it's still something that's fun and gives you more options, more control, which is always something that we just like to see in games. Next, over at number 4, let's talk combat. The Arkham-style combat. It's not that the game invented these mechanics, but it's the series that perfected them. Sure, there were games like Jet Li, Rise of Honor, anyone? Or the original Assassin's Creed that sort of had combat like this, or at least like a prototype version. But it was Arkham Asylum that really emphasized that like flow-based, rhythm-based nature of the combat system. That's what really defines fighting in those games. It's all about careful timing, attacking, dodging, and countering at the exact right time. And if you kept the flow going, then you look almost unstoppable. It was like the perfect system for a Batman game. I could go on and on. When a popular game comes out though, everyone wants to copy it. So for a few years, every game with a melee combat system of some kind copied the whole Arkham thing. It got kind of overused, no question about it, but that doesn't mean that this sort of combat needs to go away completely or just exist only in one game. If anything, unpopular opinion, if there's one type of combat system that's starting to feel a little played out now, it's the Sekiro-style parry-based stuff. Every game goes heavy on those types of parry systems now. Hell, even one of the last holddowns of the Arkham combat model, Spider-Man 2, introduced a parry. We love those style of games. Obviously, we love Sekiro, but like everyone else is doing that now, it's infecting everything, and it's starting to feel a little played out. Maybe now's the time to like go back to something a little less skill-oriented and more just fun. These games still require a certain amount of timing and rhythm and skill. It's not just like they're straight up easy, but when it's done well, it's one of the best combat systems ever, and it doesn't need to completely go away just because they stopped making Arkham games. Next at number 3, remember when multiplayer games started everyone on the same footing? You know, there was like no loadouts or character builds to worry about. You just jump into a game and run around. All the weapons you could need were right there on the map, and it was up to you to just go and get them. Map design is still an important part of multiplayer games, and anyone who played COD Modern Warfare 2 or like Ghosts can tell you that. But with no power weapons or power-ups scattered around the map, it kind of feels like something's missing. Halo Infinite is probably the last like big AAA game standing, keeping this old school shooter format going, you know? There are so many throwback multiplayer shooters in the dead games graveyard. So many people tried to mimic stuff like Quake 3 or Unreal, and it never works. There are people who still pine for the early days when everyone was fighting for the Redeemer in Unreal, or that big thing from Quake 3. Like, it doesn't even need to be the super powerful guns like that. It could just be something like the rocket launcher or an energy sword in Halo. Yes, this type of game design doesn't really make sense for like military shooters, and it's not something that every game should have, but there are times when I'm playing a modern shooter where everyone's loaded out with sniper rifles on the other team or something like that, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could just go get the big gun and nuke all these people. You're not getting kill streaks, you're not like unlocking things after grinding levels or anything like that. It's just there's a gun in the map and you can go get it. Next at number 2, QuickTime events. I mean, this one's kind of a joke, but also not really. Yeah, I know everyone hates QTEs. They were annoying and overused for sure, and they had accessibility problems. You know, if you had issues with a controller, you were kind of out of luck for a while, unfortunately. But when these things are done right, players have some options and they're used correctly, there's something satisfying about these. Take some of the QTEs from like the old God of War games where you have to like, you know, commit some unspeakable act of cruelty against a monster or a god. It just wouldn't have the same impact if it was just a cutscene. Same for like a game like Resident Evil 4, the game that popularized QTEs for a lot of players. In that game, they were designed to keep you on your toes. You couldn't rest easy, even during cutscenes, and that game's still considered a classic. Now, this isn't like a full-throated defense of QuickTime events or anything like that, because, I mean, I know I got sick of a lot of them during the 7th generation, and generally, we're glad they're mostly gone, but I feel like there could be some games that benefit from a few here and there. You know, the new God of War games could have benefited from making certain actions more interactive. But let's be real here, a lot of us just want QTEs back to see what happens when you fail them. Like the infamous Spider-Man 3 QuickTime event. That shit is gold, and like more games need nonsense like this. It's not often you get to see Spider-Man fall flat on his face and die, but it's something we deserve more often. The goofier, the better, man.
I'm going to die!
Now at number 1, let's talk objectives that change based on difficulty. Modern games try to make higher difficulties more interesting by changing enemy layouts or limiting your saves or something. But one mechanic from old games that almost never comes back, it's when your objectives change based on the difficulty level. Made famous by, believe it or not, GoldenEye 007. This sort of thing just gives like a mission-based game so much more replayability. It makes it so levels are more interesting and varied and gives you a real excuse to go back and play a level again on higher difficulties because it's not going to be the exact same thing again. Only now you die faster and it actually mixes things up in an interesting way. Here's an example from the first level of Perfect Dark. On Agent difficulty, all you have to do is get to the end of the level. But on Special Agent, you have to jam the internal and external security comms, obtain the necklace of the boss, and then escape. On Perfect Agent, there's even more. You have to access an executive computer that's like this whole elaborate thing. Not every level changes things that much, but they all have unique objectives that make it fun to play through the levels. Again, multiple times. Now, we are in the middle of like a major old school revival for some first-person shooter games, but they're mostly following the Doom, Quake, Unreal template rather than trying to do anything like GoldenEye. There's at least one or two, but like there should be more, and we'd really like to see more games that change objectives based on difficulty. I'm sure there are some people out there that will cry foul and say that you shouldn't lock content behind difficulty, but there's always accessibility options. Add those and separate that from difficulty. I don't know. We want everyone to be happy, but we know that it's gamers and not everyone's ever going to be happy. But either way, we just miss games that have difficulty-based objectives. Thief, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Time Splitters, and then that was about it. It's just a cool gimmick that shorter campaign-based games could really benefit from. Maybe that new Perfect Dark game will implement stuff like this. I don't know. But hey, those are 10 game mechanics that aren't around anymore that we'd love to see come back. We're just having a chat about some of our favorite games, so let us know in the comments what you think. There are more examples out there, and we'd love to make another version of this video. So hit us up with your suggestions. But either way, if you like watching videos with us every single day, all you gotta do is click the like button. It helps us out. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.